What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto's scared of Kakashi? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. That was the sound Naruto's heart made as he raced through the trees trying to get away from the people who were chasing him. The frightened boy's mind wasn't thinking about ramen, his next big prank, defeating his rival Sasuke or even becoming Hokage. Instead his only thought was running as fast as possible. Have to keep running, if I don't who knows what they'll do to me if they catch me. His mind screamed as he surged forward, no destination planned. Instead of landing on the next branch his foot met thin air. The stunned blonde found himself falling, hit the trees as he fell. He was so preoccupied with getting away that he wasn't looking for the next branch to jump to. Acting fast he made a hand seal trying to catch himself, but before he could summon a clone to cushion the fall his ankle met the ground and took his whole body weight, sending a shooting pain up his leg. Naruto knew he couldn't just lie there on the forest floor no matter how much his foot pained him. Slowly he began to pick himself off the ground. As predicted, his throbbing ankle protested and he nearly fell over again. Gritting his teeth, the blonde forced himself back up and limped towards the shade of a tree. Feeling safe he pressed himself against the trunk trying to catch his breath. "I think I lost them," he said out loud to himself, feeling confident he'd given his pursuers the slip. "You wish, kid," a familiar voice called. The blonde turned around only to see Yamato running towards him and Pakun sitting at his feet. Naruto began to scold himself for being so complacent. He wasn't running away from untrained civilians this time, it was highly experienced ninja, for God's sake. Fuck, of course Kakashi would summon one of his Nicknin to track me down. I'm so stupid. He tried to run from both the pug, but the wood from the tree behind him suddenly wrapped itself around his waist, keeping him in place. He instantly recognized the wood jutsu straight away. Naruto stopped struggling for a moment when he heard the wood jutsu user's voice. "Not so fast, Kakashi wants to talk with you." A few seconds later his teacher joined them, panting heavily. "Ma, that's what I call a workout. You sure can run when you have to eat, Naruto," he said breathlessly. "Oh my god, I've really screwed up this time," he thought as he tried to break free from his restraints. Kakashi looked slightly amused watching him try to get away. Yamato, Pakun and Kakashi formed a tight circle around him, preventing the boy from avoiding their gaze. His teacher gazed down at him with a blank expression on his face. At that moment the blonde would have given anything to be able to read his teacher's thoughts. "Now what am I going to do with you?" the Junin asked lazily, not taking his eye off the 16-year-old boy for an instant. He'd managed to give him and Yamato the slip once, and that was more than enough. Naruto turned to look at his sensei, but something shined in his eyes, hurting his eyes. The blonde noticed that the glint, that was blinding him, came from the sharpened kunai that his sensei held in his hand. Noticing the deadly weapon only heightened the teenager's anxiety. His heart and mind raced, fearing the bloody outcome. "He's going to do it this time for sure. There's no going back after what I've done." His already racing heart rate increased. He didn't want to die. "Well, are you going to explain yourself? Or do I need to drag it out of you?" his teacher asked. Naruto could feel his legs trembling uncontrollably. If he wasn't being held up by Yamato's wood jutsu, he'd probably fall into the ground by now. Please don't kill me," he stuttered quietly. He figured if he begged hard enough his teacher would show mercy and forgive him for his mistake. The sliver-haired ninja barely heard his, usually loud, student's whimper. "I didn't quite catch that, did you, Yamato?" Kakashi joked, playfully leaning in closer to try to hear what his student wanted to say. "No, I didn't hear that either. Who knew you could talk so quietly, Naruto?" The brunette chuckled. "No, please, I'm so sorry, don't kill me," he pleaded. Both ninjas stood there not believing what they just heard. While his boss tried to understand Naruto's actions, Pakun slowly patted up the terrified boy's leg. "Hey now kid, what's all the fuss about?" For the first time the dog noticed Naruto was avoiding putting weight on his foot. "What happened to your ankle?" he asked, concerned. Kakashi looked at the cowering figure, completely speechless. He looked at the kunai in his hand and then to his bailing student. Suddenly he pieced together what Naruto's cries implied. "No, surely not, he couldn't think I would even think of." Swiftly put his knife away and put his hands out so the blonde wouldn't see him as a threat and calm down. Yamato looked at his superior, puzzled. What on earth is he talking about, senpai? He asked as he continued to watch Naruto sob uncontrollably, muttering over and over. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, he sobbed. Kakashi didn't answer the Anbu captain's question. Instead he told Yamato to release the wood jutsu. There's no need to worry. Are you sure about this, senpai? What if he runs away again? The Anbu asked, still not sure what was going on. Pakun jumped in, defending his contractor's order, and shared his suspicion that Naruto might be injured. He won't run this time. I don't think he could, even if he tried. I think he's hurt his ankle. The small dog explained, pressing his nose against the boy's injured foot, which caused Naruto to flinch, proving the dog's point. The usually stern captain looked at Naruto and could see he was still very distressed. Reluctantly, Yamato released the wood jutsu. As soon as the blonde felt the wood disappear, he slowly slid down the tree and pulled himself into a tight ball to protect himself. Slowly Kakashi sat down on the ground in front of his student. Slowly he reached out to touch him, only for Naruto to pull further away from his grasp. Not giving up, he began to gently rub his short spiky hair in small circles. Oh, Naruto, are things really that bad between us? He asked, beyond shocked and saddened that one of his precious students was afraid of him. For the first time in the Junin's life, he didn't know what he was going to do. 6 months earlier, one moment can change everything. To an unsuspecting outsider, the sight of 5 ninja inside the Hokage's office wouldn't look strange at all. To that person, this scene would have looked like just another normal meeting between ninja. Suwande was speaking at the moment, explaining to them that the threat from the organization known as the Akatsuki was growing. The 4 people in the room, that included Kakashi, Yamato, Sakura and Naruto, listened intently to the powerful women's words without interruption. The 5th member of their team wasn't present this time. Rude business, he'd said. As she spoke, Sakura fidgeted at the mention of the name. After all, the organization members were criminal ninja wanted for numerous crimes and wanted to capture and kill her friend and teammate Naruto. But one person in the office wasn't behaving normally, and everyone noticed. Especially a certain copycat ninja. The silver-haired nin paid little attention to what the blonde woman said. He already knew about the ever-growing threat posed. As his superior continued her speech, his attention drifted towards his 16-year-old student's recent behavior. At the moment, the blonde ninja stood quietly while Suwande addressed everyone. If you walked in at that moment, you'd think the blonde was just being a normal, respectful ninja, quietly listening to the Hokage's new instructions. That's what troubled the 4, 5 if you counted Suwande sitting in the chair. People standing in the office. It's also what made this particular meeting unusual, to say the least. Even before Uzumaki Naruto's life as a ninja began, he'd never in his life been quite respectful, still, or obedient. At first, Kakashi thought his student might feeling a little depressed. Who wouldn't be after all that happened just a few days ago? But it just didn't seem possible for someone with Naruto's happy-go-lucky attitude to just suddenly look so sad and defeated. His sensei couldn't understand what happened to that bubbly, little ninja that constantly begged to train with him or teach him a new jutsu. Ever since Team 7 failed to bring Sasuke back for a second time, the blonde imp wasn't himself. It didn't suit him to look so depressed. His troubled thoughts were suddenly broken by Suad's voice. So that's why you'll be trained by Kakashi and Yamato to learn a new jutsu. Damn, he'd been so wrapped up in his own thoughts the briefing was almost over. Kakashi watched the boys' reaction, anticipating Naruto to start rejoicing and demanding that they begin training now. But the blonde hardly said anything. He looked shocked and a little happier. But even that show of emotion didn't last long, and he soon fell back into his sad mood. Kakashi couldn't take it anymore and broke the silence. Didn't you hear what Suwande-sama just said? He asked, checking to see if Naruto realized that he'd finally get to train. Naruto finally turned his gaze to face Kakashi, but when he spoke it didn't sound like him at all. Hi, I heard what Ba-chan said, sensei. I'll see you at the training grounds in the morning. The Junin couldn't believe his ears. It appeared that not even the prospect of learning a new ultimate jutsu could cheer him up. If anything, the news only seemed to make the blonde even more unhappy for some reason. Very well, Naruto and Sakura, you two are dismissed. I still need to go over a few things with Kakashi and Yamato. She explained before ushering them out the door. As Naruto left the room with Sakura, Kakashi's gaze followed his student worriedly. Once the door closed, Tsunade got down to business, could speak to the two elite Juin on their own. Tsunade looked at Kakashi. She'd noticed that his attention lay elsewhere during her pep talk. What's wrong, Kakashi? Kakashi looked up suddenly. Apparently the smart woman knew something was wrong. Hokage-sama? Is something bothering you? She asked again. What makes you say that? Kakashi asked his superior. The blonde woman folded her arms before she spoke again. Being on time, no lame excuse, and you've been in this room for about half an hour now and you haven't pulled out one of your perverted books yet. In his head the Junin could feel his brain slightly nudging him to tell her his worries about training Naruto right now, but forced them down when he realized he didn't have enough proof to back up his concerns. Ma, I'm fine thanks, I better get ready. I still have to find a way of explaining chakra natures to Naruto before tomorrow. He said lazily. Fine, if you're not going to tell me, I won't push you anyway. You both know how important this training is for Naruto. He needs this chance to grow stronger, not just for protection, but it will be a huge confidence boost as well. We can't afford another slip up the next time, we might not be so lucky. Dismissed, she said finally before returning to sign papers. After they both walked out the office, the sliver-haired nin walked right next to Yamato, finally pulling out his new green book, as they walked out the Hokage's office. As they walked in silence, neither one speaking. It was Yamato that broke the silence first. He knew Kakashi enough to know that something was on his mind. You've been unusually quiet lately, Kakashi-senpai, what's wrong? Kakashi stopped reading and put his concerns to him, hoping that the wood user could shed some light on the boy's behavior. I just wish I knew what he's thinking. Whenever I try to ask him, he shuts off completely. It's just not like him at all. He stated. When you say he, I take it we are talking about Naruto, right? The older nin nodded before continuing where he'd left off. Hi, I don't know what's wrong with him. Ever since they came back from their last mission, he's not been himself. He's a teenager. They all go through mood swings from time to time. Apart from you, of course, you skipped that part and went straight to adulthood. Yamato suggested gently. He understood Kakashi's worries, but he didn't know Naruto that well, so didn't share his concerns. The sliver nin shook his head, rejecting the idea that hormones were to blame. Whatever was bothering his young student, it didn't have anything to do with his age. A few weeks ago, if I'd told him that I was going to personally train him to learn a new jutsu, I'd be in the hospital right now with broken ribs. He explained. Yamato hesitated before he spoke again. There was one other possible reason for the blonde's change in behavior. He could still be feeling guilty about what happened on the bridge. Especially about Sakura and Sasuke. The Junin hissed under his breath when the Raven's name came up. He couldn't believe it when he found out that his former pupil tried to murder his own comrades. He'd hoped that Sasuke would see sense and return to his home instead of continuing his path of revenge. Before Kakashi left the hospital, Yamato told him what happened when they went to meet the informant at the bridge. He wasn't surprised when he heard that Naruto lost control over the nine-tailed fox and sprouted four tails. After what he'd witnessed during the mission to rescue Gaara, the experienced Junin knew it was only a matter of time before he lost control again. Unfortunately, it was sooner than later. Yamato, this is Naruto we're talking about. Sasuke has always brought out his strongest emotions, even before he left the village. The fox knows better than anyone that Naruto considers his failure to bring back Sasuke his biggest mistake. The sliver-haired explained calmly. Yamato may be an excellent Anbu captain with an unblemished record, but that didn't mean he knew everything about the teen. He shouldn't never have been on that mission, senpai, you and I both know it. He could have killed someone, hell he nearly did. Yamato cried, remembering the awful sight of the Kyuubi's chakra tails hitting Sakura and destroying the bridge as if it was a toothpick. Kakashi sighed and shut his little green book the blonde gave him. He would have gone no matter what we told him, and we would have never been able to keep that sort of information from him. Naruto will do anything to bring Sasuke back. He's trained so hard under Jiraiya's care to achieve this ambition. Could you deny him the chance to achieve it? The wood user looked at his superior. When you say it like that, no. But I still think letting him go was a huge risk. Yamato, he is a ninja, his whole life is a risk. Kakashi reminded him sarcastically. But him more so than normal. Every time he leaves the village he risks his and our safety. The seal gets weaker every day, and every day Naruto risks losing control, and next time he could die or kill others. Kakashi couldn't help but feel slightly exasperated with the wood user's harsh judgment and decided to put him in his place. Yamato, you haven't met the real Naruto yet. Trust me, during his training his own true power will shine through. Then you'll see why Suande and myself believe that by the end of this training he'll not only surpass me, but the fourth as well. I also plan on telling Naruto that myself. With that said, Kakashi walked faster towards his home. Back at his home after reading some more of his book, Kakashi sat on his bed, with his legs crossed, while he looked at his old team photo with both fondness and sorrow. The picture still held many fond memories. He sighed quietly to himself while he reflected on today's events. Sadly, his chat with Yamato only helped increase his worries rather than quell them. Deep down he knew that would happen. Besides, Yamato only met Naruto recently, sure that he'd read every file and mission report about his student, but that didn't tell you everything about a person. Naruto's sunshine personality is far too complex to put down in writing. You need to see him for yourself to really get to know him. He thought. The Anbu captain didn't know his student the same way he did. Kakashi couldn't help but wonder if he should speak to someone more familiar with the blonde. Maybe Iruka might be the best person to speak to. After all, he knows Naruto better than anyone else in the village. He said out loud, "Minato-sensei, what would you tell me to do?" he asked himself. Slowly he gazed down at the picture again and reminisced about a time in his life that would have undoubtedly changed both his and Naruto's life. Flashback. The night of the Nine Tails attack, he'd first found out about Minato-sensei's death. He'd been distraught to say the least. For a second time in his life he'd lost another father, and just like last time, he'd been powerless to stop it from happening. But in the midst of his grief, Kakashi took comfort from the fact that, unlike the last time, his teacher died a hero protecting everyone precious to him. Not soon after his teacher's funeral, two ninja came to his house and informed him that he'd been summoned by the Sandame. It came no surprise to him that the old man regained his title once Minato died. Once the door closed and they were alone, the old man walked up to him and put his hand on his shoulder. "I know this past week has been hard for you. Minato's death hit you the hardest, but I hear you've been very composed despite all of this. You sent for me," Kakashi said a little too harshly than he meant to sound. He didn't need anyone's pity, least of all the Sandame. The old man nodded before turning round and went to a nearby cot he didn't notice before. He watched as Hiruzen slowly picked up something and turned round to face him. There in his arms he held a baby. "I sent for you to remind you that all is not lost. I'm sure you're aware their son Naruto survived." How could he not know? He was one of the few that knew about Kushina's pregnancy and didn't want to know about the child in fear of the feeling it might stir. That whole week Kakashi's heart had been filled with nothing but grief and despair. A small ray of hope began to bloom his chest. But no matter how much he tried to pretend the child didn't exist, he still felt a small rat of hope when he saw the little bundle in Sartubi's arms. Minato's dying wish was Naruto be regarded as a hero. The third explained, looking down at the child with sympathy. The young Junin's head snapped up at this. He may only still be a young man, but even he knew that Minato's last request fell on deaf ears. "But no one will. As I made my way here I heard at least 5 groups plotting to kill him. Why can't we just tell them that he's Minato's child? That might smooth things over." "No," the aging man snapped, causing the little boy in his arms to whimper. The third noticed and softened his voice. "The child would be in even more danger from Minato's enemies. At the moment it's better that they don't know." "But where is he going to go now that both his parents are dead?" Kakashi asked, worried about that child's future. The old man smiled for the first time since they'd spoken. "That's why I summoned you here. I want you to take Naruto and raise him as your son. I know you're young, but with a little help from me you'll do fine. Besides, I think your teacher would approve." The room went completely silent while the copy ninja tried to make sense of the request. "I can't look after a child. I'm still a kid myself. What would everyone think if they saw me buying baby cloths and pushing a child round the village? Not to mention changing nappies, no way." Before he could make his escape, a sudden whimper stopped the teen in his tracks. Slowly Kakashi walked a little closer towards to look at the small defenseless little boy wrapped in nothing but a blanket. He was startled at what he saw. As soon as he saw the blonde hair and piercing blue eyes, it was like looking at a little clone of his dead sensei. Out of nowhere Kakashi felt a sharp stabbing pain in his chest and he found himself struggling to breathe. He knew he wasn't really injured, but his mind made it feel worse than any physical injury he'd sustained in his short lifespan. Every time he so much as glanced at him, the knife in his heart dug deeper. No, I can't take him. It hurts too much to look at him. He eventually managed to choke out. Kakashi, I know it hurts now, but in time that pain will fade and in its place you'll feel love like you can't even imagine. The elders already planned to dump him in some orphanage until he turns 5. He spat angrily that anyone could blame a baby for the disaster. But isn't Jiraiya-sama his godfather, couldn't he? Hiruzen shook his head regretfully as he looked down at the small infant. Unfortunately, Jiraiya refused. He said a new threat has emerged, a group called the Akatsuki. He seems to think gathering intelligence about them is more important. Even though his chest still ached terribly, Kakashi could still hear the criticism in the old monk's words, though he didn't dare voice his theory. I'm guessing you don't think it's important, third. He could just about imagine the heated exchange between Jiraiya and Sarutobi. Even thought they were student and teacher, the two of them didn't always see eye to eye. That's why you are my last resort, the third said to Kakashi. I don't care, I can't even look at him. How can you expect me to look after him? He replied, still clutching his aching chest with his fist. The aging Hokage looked at the boy on the ground, unable to fathom how he could turn down his request. Foolish brat, mark my words, Kakashi, one day, maybe not tomorrow or the next day, but in a few months or years you will look back to this moment and realize what a mistake you made. But by then it will be too late to change it. The old man turned to comfort the now crying baby. While Sarutobi comforted the boy in his arms, Kakashi slowly picked up his mask and quietly left the room. As he walked down the corridor he broke into a sprint to get away from the crying child. But no matter how fast he ran he couldn't get the child's face from his mind. Before he made it home he could feel his eyes burning and something wet traveling down his face, soaking his face mask. End of flashback. As the silver-haired nin reflected on Sarutobi's words and wondered if he'd made the right decision. Soon after that meeting he'd absorbed himself in his work with Anbu, so he didn't get the chance to reflect on his decision. Looking back now, the silver-haired nin knew it would have been impossible for him to have adopted Naruto back then, not when it caused him so much pain. But the third was right about one thing: as the years passed the dagger in his heart stopped hurting. Kakashi often wondered if he'd been chosen to mentor Naruto to help heal his old wounds for good. If that was the reason, it worked. He found himself caring for Naruto a little more than he should at times, but it didn't mean the boy couldn't get under his skin at times. But all the same he still cared for him. Just then he began to wonder if being Naruto's guardian would have been that bad. The silver-haired nin shook his head, sharply reminded of the pain once more. I couldn't even look at him without that stabbing feeling. How could I look after him when it hurts so much? He questioned himself quietly. At the moment he could truthfully say that he didn't regret his choice. So far so good, right third? He called out loud, making a mental note to visit the old man's grave so he could relay his message personally. Naruto didn't need him anyway, he thought. Sure, the kid didn't have the best childhood, neither did he. But even without his influence it hadn't stopped him from growing into a strong and fine young man. Deep down he knew it was just an excuse. He'd have given anything to go back to that scared boy and tell him to take the child in his arms. With that thought in mind he decided he needed to try and be there for Naruto a little more, even if it was a small influence. Maybe I should talk him again tomorrow, Kakashi thought before turning his bedside light off and falling asleep. I might even arrive early for a change, maybe. The next morning, when Kakashi went to meet Naruto at the training grounds, he couldn't believe his senses when he saw none other than Naruto, jumping around like a hyperactive child. He was only slightly surprised to see not only Yamato but Sakura and Sai also at the training grounds. They properly wanted to give him support, after all they're his teammates. He thought as the blonde finally noticed his presence. Kakashi-sensei, you're late and don't bother giving me one of your lame excuses, yelled the impatient teen. For a moment Kakashi wondered if the blonde teen in front of him was an imposter, but as soon as he started demanding ramen, training and jumping all over him, there was no mistake. Naruto, before I explain the training I want to talk to you, Kakashi said quietly, gearing up to ask the boy his question. The blonde's happy face quickly turned into a frustrated pout. Hurry up and ask me so we can get started already, I've waited years for this, he cried impatiently. Kakashi sighed. He'd been dreading this moment since he woke up, but now that Sakura and Sai were here, maybe Naruto might open up more than if he'd asked in private. I just wanted to ask, is something bothering you? The blonde looked confused, not seeing the reason for asking him the same question he did yesterday. What Naruto didn't see was Sakura and Sai throw him curious glances confirming the Junin's earlier theory. Even if the pale ninja hadn't been present during the meeting yesterday, even he noticed the change. Looks like they both noticed too. No, why do you say that? Naruto asked, oblivious to his teammates' concerned stares. Well, yesterday you looked like you'd given up on bringing Sasuke home, but today it's as if nothing happened. Kakashi answered, cautiously worried how his student would react. Naruto didn't seem fazed by his sensei's accusations, instead he just gave one of his trademark foxy grins before throwing his hands behind his head. Nothing's wrong, sensei, you're just getting senile in your old age, I'm fine, honest. Besides, I don't give up or go back on my word, that's my Nido after all. He replied before finishing his speech with a good guy pose. His sensei smiled, it felt refreshing seeing his student revitalized and ready for anything once more. Suddenly he stopped smiling when he realized what else the blonde said before resisting his nindo. Oi, you little brat, I'm not that old, he stated angrily, throwing daggers at the young ninja. Naruto just smirked at the look on his teacher's face. Maybe you're right, Captain Yamato acts older than you, he said casually, earning himself another set if death G leers, this time from Yamato. Kakashi couldn't stop a small snigger from escaping at the teen's comment. Coming from you, I'll take that as a compliment. Just out of interest, how old did you think I was? He asked. The blonde stopped grinning, taken off guard little. He'd never actually stopped to think about it before. You know, I've never really thought about it up until now. Age is something girls worry about anyway. Now Sakura started growling. His sensei chuckled, amused that the blonde had somehow managed to paint a target on his head. Why don't you guess? The Junin urged. He couldn't be sure, but he swore he could hear both Sakura and Yamato's heart stop. It didn't take long the blonde to come up with his answer, and to the Junin's surprise came up with a good reason for his guess. I think your age is 22. Bushy brow sensei is always calling you young, hip and cool, so I guess you couldn't be that old. Sakura giggled. Being a medical ninja and Suad's assistant meant she knew everyone's age including her teachers. Actually that's the right answer, Naruto. I'll buy you a bowl of ramen when we've finished training. The sliver-haired nin lied playfully, rubbing the Naruto's spikes before either Yamato, Sai or Sakura could correct him. The blonde's eyes grew wide with happiness before he started jumping around celebrating his victory. Yamato snorted, knowing full well that his former mentor was lying. He wishes. He thought, suspecting the blonde was just sucking up for a free meal. With that thought in mind, he came over to join in the conversation. If you think Kakashi senpai is that young, I wonder how old you think I am. If you get my age right, I'll also get you a bowl of ramen? Yamato asked, hoping the boy would take the hint and guess wrong on purpose. Naruto almost squealed with delight at the Anbu captain's offer. This time it took longer for the blonde to answer. He stood there for a while thinking hard as he tried to work it out. Free ramen was on the line, so he couldn't mess up. But when the blonde finally came up with his answer, it wasn't the one the wood user was hoping for. I've got it, you're 30, right? The blonde answered confidently. With that, Kakashi and Sakura burst out laughing, while the enraged wood user lunged forward trying to grab the teen. Thankfully the blonde sensed the killing intent, and anticipating the Anbu captain's reaction, Naruto raced up the nearest tree in a bid to get away from his attacker. What's the big deal, Captain Yamato? Are you older than that? He yelled down, fleeing for his life. No, I'm not, he yelled in resort as he pursued the blonde up a tree as he tried in vain to strangle the Jinchuriki. Come back here, you little shit. You're going to pay for that remark if it's the last thing I do. The Anbu captain yelled. Meanwhile, on the ground, Sakura continued to laugh at the chase scene, while Kakashi was trying not to pass out from laughing so much. He'd teased Yamato endlessly when they worked together in Anbu, but his very own student had delivered the best torment possible. Leave it to Naruto to almost kill me with laughter, the Junin thought as he tried to regain his composure. Well, how the hell was I supposed to know that? You act like a grumpy middle-aged man half the time, the blonde called back when Yamato told him his real age. Run, Naruto, he's right behind that branch, the pink-haired warned, giving Naruto enough time to jump out of one of Yamato's wood clones' reach. Thanks, Sakura-chan, he called before taking off again. Sai eventually sat down beside a tree and continued to draw in his book, seemingly not bothered by the events going on around him. Unlike the rest of his team, he didn't see what was so funny about guessing someone's age wrong or Yamato's reason for wanting Naruto dead. Eventually Kakashi was able to catch his breath back enough to stand up and give his student some friendly advice. "I'd keep moving if I were you, Naruto. Yamato didn't take your honesty that well. Oh, by the way, ramen's on me tonight, have as much as you want," he called. "Nani, whose side are you on, senpai?" Yamato yelled madly, waving his fist in the air at his superior. "Ma, that would be my precious student," Kakashi answered lazily, making no attempt to help Yamato with his capture in the slightest. He smiled as he watched Naruto continue to evade Yamato's attempts to punish him. "That's why you're called the #1 unpredictable hyperactive knucklehead ninja." He sat down and pulled out his book and waited for things to calm down. As he read, he could feel his worries slowly disappear. What the Junin couldn't know was that his instinct was right, but it would be months before the truth would come out, and when it did, he will forever remember this day and think, "Why didn't I see it?" Yamato soon realized what Hitaki Kakashi meant when he said that explaining chakra natures and shape manipulation to someone as simple-minded as Naruto would feel like a challenge. He wasn't exaggerating. Even through the wood user's job was to watch the experience left both himself and Kakashi suddenly forming a suicide pact. To prevent this bleak outcome from happening, they asked for help. They needed another wind user. Or they rather begged like their lives depended on it. Asuma was only too happy to help, at first. "Sure, I don't mind lending Naruto a hand, how hard can it be?" That's until he saw what he's dealing with. He burnt through at least 3 packs of smokes already. "Thank Kami he isn't my student. I'd have smoked myself into an early grave by now." He thought, thanking the gods for their mercy. As the week progressed, all 3 sensei found themselves admiring Jiraiya more and more. How on earth the legendary ninja managed to keep his sanity while teaching Naruto something as strong as the Rasengan, they'll never know. It seemed no matter how hard they tried to explain it to him, the blonde still found it hard to comprehend and made little progress. In the end, they restored to explaining ether by physically showing him or dumbing it down to a childlike level. Even when they eventually started training, the blonde still couldn't understand the natures properly. "I still don't get it, sensei. How can wind not beat fire? If that's true, then why can I blow candles out?" he asked as he tried in vain to split the leaf in his hands in half. He'd been at this for a few days now, but no matter how hard he seemed to try, he'd only made a small rip from time to time. At this comment, the sliver-haired nin began thinking of a painless way to end his life there and then. "For the love of Kami, Naruto. For the last time, I'll explain it again for you. Let's say you blow on a campfire, the air you blow into it only makes the flames bigger. Why does this happen? Simple, you're adding more oxygen to the fire, allowing it to grow. But when you throw water on fire, it goes out. Do you understand now?" "I think so," he said at last, and went back to training with his shadow clones. But despite the advice from the 2 Junin, he still found the basics extremely difficult. Even as something simple as ripping a leaf in half seemed impossible. "Remember to make your chakra thin and sharp," Asuma reminded gently as he watched the young teen struggling to succeed. "I know," one of his clones snapped angrily. His teacher didn't rebuke him for his tone. He couldn't blame for being a little short-tempered at the moment. The blonde looked both frustrated and exhausted. Using shadow clones to speed up training did wonders, but left Naruto feeling drained afterwards. Also, it made him rather short. Kakashi looked up from his book and looked at his student worriedly. Even though the boy's mood had changed for the better, he still sensed something was bothering the blonde. Not only that, but due to the frustration, Naruto began resorting to using more and more shadow clones to try to speed up his training even more. Even with his endless stamina, he's pushing his body past its limit. I wouldn't be surprised if passes out again. As much it pleases me to him training so hard, using this many clones is suicide, he thought. His premonition came true just a few seconds later. Sure enough, all the blonde's clones suddenly dispelled without warning and he collapsed again. Not before Kakashi caught him before he hit the ground. He patiently waited for his student to wake up before suggesting he have a rest. "Why don't you take a break and we'll start again tomorrow? You've been going at it like this now for a few days. I know that we need to complete this training as quickly as possible, but I need you still needed to use your chakra carefully. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but it looks like it might rain soon," he pointed out, looking up at the angry clouds that loomed threatened above them. The sliver-haired nin watched as Naruto seemed to contemplate his words for a moment. Before the blonde sighed in defeat. "Okay, I'll take a break. I'll go meet up with Sakura and have some ramen," he replied tiredly before sliding off his back and walking off in general direction of Konoha. While Naruto went home to rest, the three Junin walked through the town together trying to beat the rain. As they walked, Kakashi took the time to thank his smoking friend for taking the time to assist Naruto's training. "Thanks for helping us back there, Asuma, we really needed it." "I'd rather Naruto thank me. I don't think I've smoked so much in my life," he said dryly, pulling out another smoke from his pocket. He really does appreciate it, but now he's really frustrated that it's not going so well. "Let's not forget this is advanced training," Kakashi defended. The smoking nin smirked. "It's easy for you to say this is the second time you've taught one of your students this. So I suppose you're just used to this," Asuma chuckled lightly, lighting himself up as they walked. The wood user couldn't understand what the two were talking about. Then it suddenly dawned on Yamato what Asuma meant. "Oh yeah, I forgot that you and Sasuke trained in the mountains during the Chunin exams. So senpai, what's it like training someone as talented as Uchiha Sasuke?" he asked, eager to hear about his superior's prized student. "I can honestly say training with Sasuke is easier." He started not taking his eye off his book as he answered Yamato's question. "He's a lot faster. I didn't get any back chat. He did everything I told him without question. We all knew that would happen, but what's Sasuke like as a person to train? Focused, obedient and intelligent. When I explained chakra natures to him, it took less than a minute for him to catch on, and when he moved on to actually using Chidori, it only took a month." Kakashi explained as he spoke. He couldn't help but smile a little when he thought back to the days when his squad was whole. Sounds like the perfect student and the complete opposite to a certain blonde. Both of his comrades couldn't help but feel a little jealous as Kakashi spoke fondly of his former student. Despite the fact the talented boy disowned his village and became a missing nin, all of them still admired the Uchiha for his skill. "You wouldn't believe how strong he is now. I think he'd given you a run for your money now, Kakashi-senpai. I think he's closer to surpassing the fourth than Naruto right now." "Maybe you're right," the sliver-haired nin casually replied, not really paying attention to what he'd said. He was about to continue when a small voice from behind stopped them all dead in their tracks. "So everything you said before was just a joke?" The three Junin spun around sharply, but all of them already knew what sight would greet them. Sure enough, when they turned round, their eyes met a very startling splash of orange and blonde. Sakura stood next to him, sensing the blonde, while Sai looked on indifferent. Both Asuma and Yamato cringed, even seemed to know that Naruto looked both hurt and angry at the same time. The one question that went round in the three adults' heads: how much did he hear? The boy's expression confirmed their worst fears. Naruto looked at them all with tears made from frustration and hurt. "So even though Sasuke left the village, tried to kill me twice, runs around committing crimes under Orochimaru's orders, he's still a better ninja than me?" The blonde sniffed as he went through his list. All of them looked at the ground feeling a little bad. Sakura put her hand on her teammate's shaking shoulder, trying to both calm and reassure him. "Naruto," she began, but the blonde wasn't in the mood to hear her words of wisdom and shrugged her hand off and let the rest of his anger out at full blast. "Well, I'm sorry that I'm not perfect like Sasuke. Maybe if I run off and become a missing nin and abandon my comrades, at least I know you'll say nice things about me when I'm gone." He blonde bellowed, his voice straining from the heart. After the enraged Jinchuriki's loud outburst, the small crowd of villagers began to grow in size. Asuma noticed and decided to step in, not just to clam the team down, but also to defend his college after he did start the conversation. "Naruto, calm down. I understand that we upset you, but Kakashi-sensei didn't mean it like that, he just meant." But Naruto didn't wait for the rest of Asuma's explanation and carried on yelling. "I know I'm weaker than him and stupid. I don't need you or anyone else reminding me all the time." He barked before running off down the crowded street as fast as he could. The growing crowd quickly moved out of his way as he dashed past. As they all watched him leave, none of them noticed when the first drops of rain fell from the sky. "Damn it, that spoiled brat." The wood user spat, disgusted at the boy's behavior. Sakura ran over to her teacher and tried to apologize for her friend's actions. "Kakashi-senise Gomen, I'm sure he'll calm down soon," she said. "I have to admit he did a good job on spying. I didn't even sense him walking behind us." Sai butted in and explained how Naruto came to overhear the conversation. Forgive me for intruding, but he wasn't spying. Naruto, Sakura and I went to get lunch, to forge bonds. When he saw you all together, he wanted to invite you three to join us when he heard you talking. He heard pretty much everything. The silver-haired nin shook his head. No, this time I'm the one at fault. I shouldn't compare Naruto and Sasuke like that. He has every right to feel angry this time. Yamato stared back at him, shocked that he'd let his own student get away with murder. If he'd spoken to the copy nin like that, he'd been skinned alive in a heartbeat. But he didn't need to speak to you like that. He needs to know that kind of behavior won't be tolerated. Asuma nodded in agreement with the Anbu captain. He's right, Kakashi. If one of my students shouted at me like that, you can bet I'd set them straight. As he said this, he suddenly realized that Ino was the hothead in his squad. I wouldn't want to get into a fight with her. I'd properly lose. I know, but he's my student and I said the wrong thing at the wrong time. I truly believe that he can surpass the fourth. I wasn't lying when I told him that. Now he thinks I only said it for kicks. He explained. He's always wanted to train with me ever since the Chunin exams. Even so, you should leave him be for now. He'll only start snapping at you and slam the door in your face. Try to talk to him again tomorrow. Besides, it's pouring down now, so he wouldn't dare train in this weather. The wood user looked at his former mentor, surprised to see Thar. He looked disappointed. Yamato, I've told you once and I'll tell you again. You don't know Naruto. He's not the type to just stay at home and sulk. I'm almost sure he'll go straight back there to burn his anger off. He knew better than anyone that the reckless teen would spend the rest of the day training himself to exhaustion. What should we do, sensei? Sakura asked. Against his better judgment, he decided to follow Yamato's advice, even though he didn't like the idea of leaving Naruto out in the pouring rain. We'll leave him alone till tomorrow. He won't listen to any of us when he's angry, and knowing him, it will take all night for him to burn out. Kakashi walked off back to his home just as it began to pour down. The next morning, Kakashi broke the habit of a lifetime by turning up on time to meet his team. Yamato nearly fell over in shock while Sakura checked to see if he was an imposter. No need to worry, it's really me. And here's the book for proof anyway. Why are you and Sai here? He asked. The two weren't required to help Naruto train. There was no need for them to be here today. We both wanted to see if Naruto's okay after yesterday. Well, it was Sai's idea, really. I just wanted to see for myself. Sakura answered quietly. Sai didn't say anything but nodded. I see. Has anyone seen Naruto anywhere? He asked, looking around for his other student. The whole reason he turned up so early was so he could apologize. He didn't sleep that well, not just because it rained hard all through the night, but because he didn't know what he needed to say to the blonde to make it right. No, actually. Yamato answered and looked around to see if the blonde was around. The silver nin had been dreading this outcome. The whole reason he turned up early was so he could apologize and reassure him that he did have faith in him to complete his training. Now that he thought about it, there was only one place he could think to look for Naruto. Let's head to the training grounds. He's most likely to go there. When the five ninja eventually made their way back to the meadow, they couldn't believe their eyes. The once beautiful ground now looked like a wasteland. Only a few patches of grass remained untouched. Huge fight broke out apparently after in the street. Naruto took his anger out on anything he could. The only thing they found of Naruto was his leaf headband. On top of it was a single leaf cut perfectly in half down the middle. Kakashi picked it up. There's no doubt about it, it's been cut with chakra. Looks like he finally did it. In the distance they heard a crashing sound before they saw a tree fall to the ground. All of them snapped their heads round in the direction the sound came from. Quickly, Kakashi ordered. Both Kakashi and Yamato ran ahead as the sliver-haired nin charged. His mind raced with worry. He felt like he was overreacting a little, but his head told him otherwise. Please, Kami, let Naruto be safe. He begged. The two ninja ran as fast as the kid towards the chakra signal, fearing the worst. Kakashi, it's strange, there's a lot of chakra in the air, but it's all coming from one source. I don't sense anyone else within a 10-mile radius. Yamato explained. The closer they got to the source, the more Kakashi realized the Anbu captain was right. To everyone's surprise and great relief, they found Naruto alone on his hands and knees, panting heavily. Kakashi surged forward towards his student, thanking the powers that be that he seemed safe and well. Naruto, are you alright? He asked, checking the area just to make sure it was safe. The blonde sat down and panted a little more before answering his worried teacher's question, but when he spoke it didn't sound like this pupil. "Hi sensei." Kakashi looked at his student startled. The briefest of moments he wondered if he'd actually spoken. It sounded really squeaky and broken, nothing like his usually loud voice. Yamato on the other hand chuckled slightly when he heard the dramatic change in the boy's tone. "Well, I never thought I'd see the day. Has the great Uzumaki Naruto lost his voice?" "Hi," he rasped quietly. "Well, I can't say I'm surprised after all the shouting you did yesterday," Asuma said, playfully ruffling the blonde's hair. Sakura and Sai suddenly emerged from the trees and surged forward towards her friend, fighting back tears as she ran. "Naruto, where on earth have you been? We've all been worried sick," Sakura yelled, feeling more relieved than angry. "Sorry Sakura-chan, I lost track of time," he said, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. Sakura allowed herself a small giggle when she heard his squeaky voice and lost some of her anger towards him a little. Yamato looked just as angry as his pink-haired teammate. "You know that me or Kakashi need to supervise you when you train. Exerting yourself like this can cause you to tap into the fox's chakra. What if something happened to you?" While Yamato continued to reprimand the blonde for disobeying orders, Asuma looked at the surrounding trees again, startled at the state of them. Most of them looked damaged and broken. It looked like they'd been stabbed by a madman. Suddenly he put two and two together. "Hey, Naruto, did you do all this?" he asked, pointing at the trees behind him. Naruto nodded, pulling himself off the ground. "Yeah, pretty cool, right?" He smiled happily. "Show us," Asuma encouraged, gently, intrigued to see the results of the training for himself. The blonde smiled, eager to show off his hard work. Quickly he pulled out another kunai from his weapon pouch and chose his new target. The three Junin watched as the weapon in the blonde's hand began to glow as he poured his chakra into it. As Naruto threw the weapon hard at the tree, it shot through his trunk and became embedded deep inside the bark. Asuma smiled, more than impressed with Naruto's growth. "Not bad at all," he said as he examined the tree carefully. Despite the praise from his superior, Naruto didn't seem to share in his sensei's enthusiasm. Instead, the blonde looked slightly disappointed. "It's not that good, it didn't completely go through the tree like you showed me. It takes about 3 attempts from me to cut it down," he said glumly. "Don't be so hard on yourself. Even though it still needs work, your technique is spot on. The area around the entry point is clean, which means you've got the hang of making your chakra thin and sharp." "Have you been here all night?" Yamato asked as he admired the forest of damaged trees. Most of them all bared the scars of the teen's training. The blonde nodded. "Sniff." High caption Yamato sniff. "How did you do all this in one night?" Kakashi asked as he watched his exhausted student, amazed at the improvement. "Yesterday he couldn't even tear a leaf in half. Now he can almost cut through trees with a single throw. There's no way he did all this by himself in one night, even with just shadow clones. I just focused on what you told me and I wanted to prove you all wrong, which helped motivate me a lot. I can't let Sasuke get the better of me, can I? What kind of Hokage will be if I can't tear a stupid leaf in half?" he boasted. Kakashi smiled, satisfied with his answer. But there was one thing they needed to talk about. He began by putting his hand on the blonde's shoulder. "Naruto, about yesterday." The blonde looked down at the ground. He suddenly looked ashamed about something. "I'm really sorry I yelled at you yesterday, sensei. I know I'm not the easiest student to teach," he said quietly. "No, I'm the one that's sorry. I shouldn't compare you and Sasuke like that. It's not fair. You have qualities Sasuke can only dream of having. You're loyal, trustworthy, humble, kind, dedicated, you'll ask for help when you need it, and above all, you never give up. Besides, from the sound of your voice it sounds like you've been punished enough." Kakashi noticed the blonde still looked guilty, but he knew what would cheer him up in no time. He leaned in close and whispered in Naruto's, revealing an S-ranked assert. "And just between you and me, it's true that Sasuke is an exceptional ninja. He was boring to teach," he said. As he predicted, Naruto's face beamed at this news. The blonde couldn't believe what his ears were hearing. He'd always believed his sensei enjoyed his time training with Sasuke during the Chunin exams. "Are you serious? Sasuke boring?" the blonde exclaimed, making his already squeaky voice crack even more. "You see, while you may learn at a slower pace than him, your unpredictable nature makes training more entertaining. I never know what's coming. What you lack in speed you make up for in creativity. Take what you've done with the shadow clone Justu for example. The second Hokage invented it to use for spying and exploring unknown areas. It wasn't meant for combat. Thanks Sensei Achu, that makes me feel much better. Cough. Naruto continued to sneeze a few more times, attracting everyone's attention. The sliver-haired nin eyed his student carefully for a moment. Suddenly he noticed the slight blush on his student's face, making his curiosity spike. Kakashi reached out to check his temperature. As soon as his cool hand met Naruto's head, he wanted to pull back sharply. Naruto, you're burning up. Please tell me you didn't train in that downpour last night. Kakashi exclaimed, removing his palm from the teen's sticky forehead, suddenly thankful that Naruto didn't have his leaf headband on at the time. Okay, I didn't train in the rain. The blonde replied rather drowsily, rubbing his eyes as he said it. That's not funny. He snapped, not in the mood for sarcasm. A quick check on the boy's cloths revealed he was soaked through, confirming his suspicion. He'd hoped Naruto would take shelter and wait for the rain to slow down, but apparently not. Sakura sighed heavily as she checked the blonde's temperature for herself. Naruto did have a slight fever but could mask other problems. Baka, you didn't need to push yourself that hard. Take your shirt off right now and come sit here so I can check you over. She instructed, motioning for her friend to sit him over, with her glowing palms scanning his chest, carefully checking for infection. It's only a little cold, Sakura, I'll be fine. Cough cough. You're anything but fine. She yelled, furious at her teammate's total disregard for his own health. She knew better than anyone how dangerous being both cold and wet can be on the human body. Knowing her teammate, she guessed he felt exhausted as well. I take it you haven't taken a break since yesterday either. Nothing a little training can't fix. The blonde sniffed. Sakura couldn't believe her teammate's stupidity. She was just about to lay into him again, but her angry sensei got there first. You're lucky you didn't catch your death. I've seen ninja more experienced than you go down with pneumonia from staying in the rain for just a few hours, let alone all night. Not to mention the risk of hyperthermia. He silver-haired nin scolded. But the blonde wouldn't listen to his teammate's concern and got up to defend his point. Cough cough, but this cough training's cough important. He spluttered. Every time the boy let out a hacking cough or trembled from the cold, the silver hair's guilt multiplied tenfold. Right, that's decided. You're going straight home to rest, and I don't want to catch you outside. Not until Sakura or Tsunade tell me personally that you're fit for duty. Is that clear? He ordered, taking his Chunin vest and wrapping it around the shivering boy's frame. Before pulling the Naruto close to his chest, shocked that he could feel how cold and wet his student was through his own clothing. Kakashi could hear the sound of Naruto letting out a muffled sigh of contentment. The next thing Naruto uttered was so quiet and soft Kakashi strained to hear what he'd said. So warm. The young ninja breathed quietly before he could feel him snuggling into his chest. While Naruto relished the warmth he'd revived, inner Kakashi began screaming at himself for allowing his student to get so sick. How could I have been so stupid? I knew he'd come back out here and train by himself, even if it poured down with rain. I should have checked in on him. I promised myself I'd look out for him more, but I've let him down again, and now look what's happened. His thoughts broke when he heard the sound of a moan, followed soon after by the sound of soft snores. The sliver-haired nin looked down at his young charge only to see that he'd fallen asleep against his chest. Only you could fall asleep standing up, he said. Yamato and Asuma didn't quite know what to make of Kakashi's sudden protective behavior towards the blonde. Neither of the two had ever seen the usually laid-back ninja so emotional. They'd all thought the copy ninja didn't have emotions. Maybe the rumors about him going soft are true. Yamato whispered carefully so he wasn't heard. Asuma sniggered at the wood user's accusation. I'm starting to believe them myself. He joked playfully as he watched the Junin carefully scoop the sleeping boy onto his back and held him tightly. While he watched, he decided to light up another cigarette. Unfortunately for the two Junin, their conversation hadn't been as quiet as they'd hoped. What did you two say? I didn't quite catch it. Kakashi asked, turning to face them, his Mangekyo Sharingan activated. His new eye wasn't only good for attacks. The pair stiffened at the sight of glowing spinning red eye. They both felt like Kakashi could see right into their souls. If looks could kill, Yamato exclaimed, trying hard not to make any sudden movements, fearing his sudden demise if he so much as breathed the wrong way. Since you two seem to love gossip, I wonder, did either of you hear the rumor that Sasuke learned his legendary death stare from me? He asked as he slowly walking past his two shell-shocked comrades. Asuma took a deep breath, burning through his newly lit stick in one drag before nearly choking on the fumes. I need to go meet with my team. Suande said I have an S-ranked mission waiting for me. He said before fleeing for his life. I'm going to take Naruto home and get him cleaned up. I'll see you too late. Sakura, come with me please. He asked. Sakura, who also feared her teacher's wrath, followed close behind without question. Sai casually fell into step next to them as all they made their way back Naruto's home. When they got back to the blonde's home, Sakura took over and bruised herself while she told her teacher what to do. Sensei, go and put Naruto to bed so he can rest up, while I prepare some medicine for him. Sai, can you come and help me please? While both Sakura and Sai went to the kitchen get some medicine. Kakashi very carefully deposited the sleeping blonde onto his bed and covered him over with a blanket. He'd rather Naruto take a warm bath, but he didn't want to make his fever worse. If he was being completely honest with himself, he didn't have the heart to wake him up. He looked so cute and warped up in his Chunin vest. Especially since he looked so sweet warped up inside his own Chunin vest. Sai soon came back to the room holding a large bowl filled with water and a clean cloth in his hands. I got some water and a cloth to help bring down his fever. Sakura's just getting the medicine ready. She says to change it every few minutes. He called. Thanks Sai, bring it over here and we'll start cooling him down. Kakashi suggested. The pale nin carefully handed him the bowl. He took the cloth and put it in the water and wrung the fabric out before gently placing it on Naruto's sweaty head. The blonde hissed a little at the cool sensation. I want to stay and watch him, but I need to report to Tsunde and let her know how Naruto's training is progressing. I'll be able to come back as soon as I can. She is going to be pissed when she finds out about this. He said miserably. He could actually see the angry woman's face with his mind's eye. Sakura entered the room as he said this. She smiled and tried to reassure her teacher's worries. Don't worry sensei, I didn't find anything other than a fever. Tsunade-sama knows what Naruto's like, she'll understand. Knowing how fast he heals, I'm sure he'll be back on his feet tomorrow, demanding ramen and training. Unfortunately, I'm needed at the hospital today, so I can only check on him every few hours. Sakura said glumly, silently wishing she could do more to care of her sick friend. While the two of them wondered what they should do, the solution came from an unlikely source. I'll stay with him. After all, we're teammates now. Sai offered gently. The pink-haired ninja spoke first, surprised at her friend's gesture. She didn't know Sai that well, but he'd never shown an interest before now. Sai, it's not like you to act like this. Why the sudden change? She asked while her inner Sakura thought it was really sweet of him to offer. Who knew Sai could be so caring? The pale nin looked a little taken back by his female teammate's question. Well, you see, I haven't really proven to Naruto that he can fully trust me yet. He's still weary of me after what happened with Sasuke. He replied, looking away for a second as if he was remembering something. Kakashi thought about Sai's kind offer for a moment. As much as he wanted to stay with the blonde, he knew that reporting Naruto's condition to Tsunade was more important at the moment. Also, he didn't feel right about leaving a sick Naruto with someone he barely knew, and from what Sai just told him, the two didn't seem like the best of friends at the moment. But he knew a way around that. Okay, I'll leave him with you, Sai. Just for a few hours, then Sakura can take over in the afternoon, and I'll come back and take the night shift, that way we can all look after him. I can manage by myself, Kakashi-sensei. Sakura would be too tired after working at the hospital. I don't mind, after all me and Naruto haven't really found a chance to properly bond since I joined Team 7. I've read that nursing the people you care about can help form a strong relationships. Sai, we all want to help our friend to get better, and we all have to share the burden. He said gently. It's not that he didn't trust Sai, he just thought that sharing the responsibility was better for everyone. Before Sakura left for her shift, she left the pale nin with a set of clear instructions on how to care for Naruto while they were away. Sai, if Naruto wakes up, get him to drink this, it may make him feel a little drowsy afterwards. If he gets the chills, there's an extra blanket on the chair. If his fever gets worse, make him take a cool bath, and if you need help, don't hesitate to ask. Sai looked slightly overwhelmed at all the information. As the two went to leave, he looked back at Naruto one last time. He didn't know why, but he still felt a little apprehensive about leaving Sai alone with Naruto. Should I leave him? No, he'll be fine for a few hours. Sakura will be back soon. When Kakashi finally got to return, it was dark out. It was still Sakura's turn to sit with Naruto. She was changing the cloth with a fresh one. The meeting with Saunde seemed to take forever. The whole time he was there listening to his boss go on, Junin just wanted to get back to his young charge and make it up to him. Kakashi swore the blonde woman knew this and deliberately dragged it out as long as she could to punish him. He greeted his female student warmly before asking about the blonde's condition. "How is he?" he asked, leaning down to check Naruto's temperature. To his relief, he found it gone down a lot. Sakura looked at her poorly teammate with a look of concern and sympathy etched on her face. "He's calmed down a little now, but when I came back this afternoon, he was anything but comfortable. His fever spiked just before I got here and it took me a while to settle him," she said, wiping his forehead one last time before passing the rag to Kakashi so he could take over. "What did Sai say?" he asked, wondering as he sat on the chair next to the bed. He couldn't but wonder how well Sai coped. Root ninja weren't known for their caring personality. Kakashi half expected Sakura say Sai came running to the hospital 5 minutes later begging her to come back and help. "He seemed to do everything right as far as I can tell. He gave Naruto his medicine, kept him warm and hydrated. He even helped Naruto change into his pajamas," she said fondly before leaving her teacher take over. The rest of the night Kakashi sat with his student and read from his book. A little while later he noticed Naruto's eyelids kept twitching and the blonde would moan or cry out. At a loss as to how to soothe his student, he didn't like seeing him so uncomfortable. He looked around the room frantically searching for an answer to help his pupil. As he scanned the room, his eye made contact with his discarded Chunin vest on the chair. He'd almost forgotten he'd let Naruto use it to keep warm. An idea suddenly dawned on him. Sakura mentioned he got upset after Sai helped him change out the rest of his cloths. "I wonder." Kakashi stood up and walked across the room to retrieve his jacket and walked back to the bed where the boy started to thrash a little under the covers. Slowly and gently the copy nin placed the green garment under the boy's head, and prayed that this plan would work. Sure enough, the poorly blonde quickly settled down before Kakashi's eyes and curled into a tight ball while he snuggled his newfound pillow happily. "Sensei." Naruto outcalled softly. Kakashi wished he'd brought a camera with him so he could record what he was seeing. "That's so sweet. You missed me, didn't you?" he said quietly as he watched while his student finally looked relaxed and comfortable. "Looks like I'm not sleeping tonight again. This is the second night in a row I've lost sleep because of you, he said to his sleeping student. As he watched him sleep peacefully, he felt a strange warm feeling grow inside his chest, followed by a low growling sound. "And you're starving me too. Damn, that kid never sits still," Yamato thought to himself as Naruto jumped around like a toddler showing off his fitness. Just like his superior said, Naruto recovered in no time at all, and before the wood user knew it he was soon bouncing around both their feet again, eager to train. Even the blonde's loud voice returned. "Come on sensei, please, can we start training again? I feel tons better, honest," the blonde pleaded, giving both of the Junin his legendary puppy dog eyes. After all, it worked on Iruka-sensei many times when he wanted a bowl of free ramen. The wood user watched as the silver nin stood there rubbing his chin thoughtfully for a moment. Let me think about it for a moment. Well, Suande-sama gave you the all clear this morning, so I guess we can do some light training. If that's all right with Yamato, of course." Yamato would never dare say it out loud, but he was sure Naruto's puppy dog eyes won him over. "I don't care how much Senpai Death stares me, he's going soft on me," he said quietly enough so he wasn't heard. The blonde whooped joyfully, before running over to Yamato trying the same trick out. "Please Captain Yamato, I can't train without your awesome woodjutsu," he said earnestly. For Kakashi it was the puppy dog eyes that made him cave in, but for Yamato on the other hand it was the flattery that got him. "Well, when you put it like that, then there's no way I can say no. Okay, I'll help you train," the wood user replied, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. Kakashi eyed his former subordinate warmly at this. Ever since the former Anbu captain saw Naruto's determination for himself, Yamato began making more of an effort to get to know Naruto a little. He might not be showing it, but I can already tell that he's starting to like being around Naruto, he thought to himself. Kakashi couldn't believe how fast his student was progressing through the training now. After seeing how hard Naruto found tearing a simple leaf in half, both Yamato and Kakashi wondered if the blonde was going to struggle just as much in the next stage. But to their surprise and amazement, Naruto breezed through, splitting the waterfall in half with little difficulty, and it wasn't just because of the shortcut. Something else was driving him. When they eventually came to the part of actually begin putting his wind nature into the Rasengan, on the other hand, it looked like they'd hit another roadblock. That is until Naruto did what he did best, surprised his sensei. It felt amazing for Kakashi to see his usually naive student coming up with such a clever idea. Once again he couldn't help feel like he was getting to know Naruto all over again. When he'd done this training with Sasuke, he didn't even feel half as close with the Raven as he did with Naruto at the moment. With the Uchiha it was always about fast results, never about bonding. From afar Yamato watched the blonde progress through his training at a steady pace. No matter how many attempts failed, the young ninja got right back up and tried again. He saw that cold incident Yamato began to warm up to Naruto a little more. He began to see why Kakashi held Naruto in high regard. I've never seen anyone put that much effort into training. Naruto could put even some of the Anbu I've worked with to shame. Yamato thought, feeling exhausted just watching the blonde work so hard. A few hours later Kakashi walked over to him. The next set of instructions startled Yamato for a moment. "I'll leave Naruto to you. When he finishes, come and back us up." The Anbu captain nodded. He knew where Kakashi was going and what he'd be up against. "Be careful, senpai, we'll get there as fast as we can," Yamato reassured. Now that Naruto was well on his way to completing jutsu, Kakashi left Yamato in charge to oversee the rest of Naruto's training. The copy nin needed to meet up with the remaining members of Team 10. Time to settle a score, he thought venomously as he made his way to the village gate. Asuma's death came as a shock to everyone that knew him best. The heavy smoker wasn't lying that day when he raced off in a hurry. He really did go on a mission. What Asuma didn't tell them was it involved the Akatsuki. The least he could for his friend was avenge his death. Never in Kakashi's life had he been so happy to see the backs of both Yamato and Naruto standing in front of him. Just like he thought both Yamato and Naruto's chakra natures complemented each other, making them a perfect team. Even though Naruto looked a little worn out, both of them looked ready for anything. The copy nin wasn't surprised at the new level of teamwork the two of them displayed. Ever since Naruto started training again, both Naruto and Yamato really began to bond. And to Kakashi's joy, the Anbu captain finally began to see Naruto's true strength. "What do you two know that I don't?" he asked himself. When the first attack failed to land, the enemy saw his chance and wrapped himself around the blonde. Both Kakashi and Yamato acted quickly to rescue Naruto before the zombie ninja could steal his heart. The wood user restrained him while Kakashi severed the threads quickly with his lightning cutter before scooping the boy up and fleeing to safety. "Trust you to screw that up," Kakashi joked, setting the panting boy down. Naruto didn't look fazed by his failure. Slowly he stood up and took a few steps forward. "Let me try again. I know teamwork is important, but I need to cross this bridge by myself this time. If I don't, I won't ever grow up," the blonde stated. Kakashi stared at his young student in awe. It appeared that Naruto was maturing much faster than he first realized. "I guess it's time to let him go," he thought. You could see the level of growth just by looking into his eyes. "All right, I'll leave the rest to you," Kakashi said at last, reluctantly giving his blessing. Everyone watched as the determined teen charged, armed with a new attack. Hiruzen. But this time the enemy was prepared for the oncoming strike. Jumped over the clones, seeing through the distraction tactic, and threw this attack directly at the original. None of the four ninja could get there in time to save Naruto from the deadly move. With lightning speed, the missing nin's attack hurtled towards the real Naruto, and with a deafening crash he hit its mark, the earth crumbling around them from the force of the impact. All four ninja held their breaths in anticipation as they anxiously waited for the dust cloud to clear, praying with all their hearts that Naruto had somehow managed to escape unharmed. But when they could see the field clearly again, they saw three of Kakuzu's deadly threads piercing through Naruto's still and lifeless body. In an instant the world seemed to play out in slow motion to Kakashi. In his shock, he didn't even hear both Ino and Choji scream out Naruto's name at the same time. Instead, his mind refused to believe what his eyes were seeing. "No, this isn't real, he can't die. It's all my fault if I didn't push him so hard to complete that jutsu, and if I hadn't come out here to settle some stupid score." While Kakashi thought this, he silently begged for anyone to wake him up from this awful nightmare. That moment seemed to take an eternity but probably only lasted for a few seconds at most. The blonde's grotesque body vanished with a soft poof. Before anyone could begin to process what just happened, an airy screech broke the silence. Everyone's head turned skywards to where the sound came from, followed by a dim light coming from above the smoke behind their aslant. The zombie nin couldn't believe it when he looked behind to see the blonde and two clones hurtling towards him filled with determination. And in his hand was a newly formed Rasen Shuriken. Before Kakashi could even begin to feel any sense of refilfa that his student was alive and well, the world seemed to speed up again instantly. In the blink of an eye the blonde slammed his new jutsu into Kakuzu without any hint of hesitation, sending the enemy hurtling across the sky before the Justu exploded with thousands of blades shattered the two remaining masks instantly. The shock wave from the blast sent Naruto flying backwards, before he and his clones eventually landed a few feet behind his teammates. After the display finally ended, the stunned audience watched as the missing nin's body fell into the huge crater left behind from the deadly jutsu. While both Ino and Choji raced to Naruto's side to tend to his injuries, Yamato and Kakashi stood together, both still amazed at what they'd both seen. Looks like Naruto's on his way to becoming a formidable ninja, maybe even a worthy Hokage. The wood user said at last. The copy nin smirked a little under his mask. Sounds like you're going soft to me, Yamato. He teased playfully, catching his friend off guard. The wood user sighed at his comrade's comment, knowing full well what he meant. You're never going to let me live that down, are you? He asked, cringing slightly, the memory of that death stare still fresh in his mind. Properly not, but while I agree that Naruto's grown consider in the last few weeks, he's still got a long way to go before he fulfills his dream. While Kakashi spoke calmly without giving away too much emotion, on the inside the Junin was beyond happy. Words couldn't describe the eminence pride building up inside his chest. He's done it. I'm so proud of you, Naruto. I wish your father could be here to see you now. On thinking this, the copy nin felt a little sad at the same time. His student had surpassed the fourth and soon Naruto wouldn't need him around all the time. An even larger part of him wished Sasuke could see how much he'd influenced Naruto's development. You're always in his thoughts even now. Kakashi made his way over to his student, ready to congratulate him. But as he got closer, a shocking sight in front of him made his body freeze up. He grabbed his chest as a stabbing pain surged through his body, crippling the copy nin instantly. The copy nin couldn't stop himself from falling to the ground, landing on his side panting heavily. He felt like he couldn't breathe no matter how much air he tried pull into his lungs. No, not again, please not again. He begged to himself. The copy nin went into such a state that he didn't even hear the frantic cries of his comrades calling his name. Whenever asking him questions, nothing seemed to break through his panic. It was only when someone gently pulled the copy nin's head onto their lap and petting his hair gently, all the while whispering words of comfort, did he begin to feel himself clam down a little. Who'd ever thought simple words like, "It's okay, take your time, doing just fine." Strangely enough, this helped a lot, and breathing started to feel easier again. But the thought of opening his eyes left the copy nin feeling fearful of what awaited him when they opened. But the soft voice broke through the dark haze again and kept pleading for him to open them. "Come on, open them up so we know you're okay," they said. Whoever it was, their persistence paid off. Kakashi reluctantly opened his eyes and looked up. He was met by the same startling sight that set him off. The first thing he noticed was he was lying on his back. The second thing he became aware of was the numerous faces above him. But there was one face that stood out and it frightened him. Instead of seeing the face of his worried student, instead Minato's face was in its place. But this vision wasn't anything like the shadowy outline that inspired him earlier during their time training. He blinked again and again, praying the hallucination would clear, but it didn't. This time he could clearly see his former mentor staring right at him like he'd never died. As Naruto reached out to touch his face, Kakashi slapped the outstretched hand away harder than he meant to, making the boy whimper a little. Kakashi fought the strong hands, trying to keep him still, and managed to stand up again. Urged to run towards the Carter to finish the Akatsuki nin off. He made a quick assessment and came to the conclusion he was fine, a little shaky on his legs. "I'm sorry, I'm just tired, that's all. I used up a lot of chakra and I used the Sharingan a lot. I'll stay behind and guard the body till Anbu arrive. You can all go back home," he reassured. Naruto began to protest, but he was cut off. "But Senni, Kakashi flinched before making his excuses and quickly walking away from them. Unlike the rest of his team, Naruto didn't look so surprised by his teacher's behavior, just like pervy Sage back then. He said sadly before walking away with Choji supporting him. Yamato on the other hand decided to ignore Kakashi's orders and returned to his side. After what he'd just seen, there was no way he could let the matter drop and raced after him. "What's wrong and what happened back there?" he asked while his face gave nothing away. You could hear the concern behind the question. "I just told you, I just need to rest, it's nothing to worry about." The Junin breathlessly replied. "Like hell it's nothing, you just had a full-on panic attack and then you walk off like normal. Has this ever happened before?" Yamato asked. The line of inquiry was begging to feel very uncomfortable. He'd never told his subroutine about that night. In fact, as far as Kakashi was aware, only the third Hokage knew about it. "Leave it, Yamato," he warned before jumping into the cart or leaving the wood user to come up with his own theories. That night Kakashi sat on his bed quietly. He'd gotten back from the autopsy report a few hours ago. But he hadn't paid much attention. He'd listened intently to the part about the attack's side effects. New attack. Naruto couldn't use his new jutsu anymore because it damaged him as well as the enemy. But this wasn't what troubled him. While he went through the problem inside his head, Kakashi didn't notice the shadowy figure stilling on the window. "Lost in thought, are we?" a voice called from outside his bedroom window. As he turned, he found the face of Jiraiya staring back at him, leaning against the window's wooden frame. "When did you get back?" Kakashi asked plainly. "I came back a few days ago. Seems like you've all been kept busy in my absence. I can't leave that brat alone for 5 minutes before he goes off and does something new. I also heard that Naruto finally managed to complete the Rasengan thanks to you," the aging man stated. "Care to fill me in on your private chat?" the sage answered. "So care to fill me in on your private chat?" For a moment the Junin wondered if this was something he could share with the Sannin. After all, it involved Naruto. "I was just thinking maybe Naruto's better off with you than me. I don't think there's much more I can teach him now anyway." Jiraiya pouted a little at this. "Why would I want that brat back? Especially after I just got some peace and quite after 3 years of torture that I still need therapy for." Despite the sage's tone, he didn't mean it really. In truth, he missed having the loud blonde around. Kakashi knew this and carried on. "I'm not exactly the right teacher for him. And we could use some time apart." At this, white-haired Sannin began laughing so hard that he fell to the ground holding his sides painfully, confusing the hell out of, "What's so funny suddenly?" "Nothing, it's just I never thought you could be so blind, Kakashi," the Sannin explained through the laughter. Kakashi didn't get the joke. "Forgive me, but I still don't see how I'm amusing." The Toad Sage stopped laughing for a moment and eyed the copy nin. "You really haven't noticed? Christ, Kakashi. Anyone with half a brain cell can see that you care deeply about Naruto. Everyone can see it." "Of course I care about him, he's my student. I think I'd be the worst sensei in history if I didn't care about his progress. But I don't go out of my way for him," Kakashi exclaimed. Jiraiya studied the Junin for a moment. He knew every wheel what was really bothering Kakashi, and he was going to damn well make sure he faced it tonight even if it killed him. "Don't even try to pull the wool over my eyes, brat. I know all about that night 16 years ago." The copy nin's posture stiffened suddenly at this. "Oh yes, Gaiki, the old Geza told me everything a few weeks afterwards. And since that day you've tried with all your heart to distance yourself from Naruto, and I can understand why." Both angry and scared of the sensitive subject, Kakashi didn't know what to say to make the nosy sage to back off and drop the subject. In the end he settled with shouting. "You don't understand, none of you do. You have no idea how much it hurt to look at him. Did you know I resented the third for putting Naruto on my team? You can't talk. Where were you when Naruto needed his godfather? Oh, that's right, you ran away, remember?" He snapped, a little shocked that he'd raised his voice to someone as powerful as a Sannin. And judging by the look on the sage's face told him that he'd hit a nerve. In an instant Jiraiya flew across the room and shoved the copy nin against the wall hard. He didn't waste his time shouting at Kakashi, instead he got straight to the point of the matter. "You saw Minato again, didn't you? That's why you freaked out after that fight. Don't think for a second you're the only person in the world that suffers BQs of his death. I heard what happened after the battle." As Kakashi nervously looked into the sage's eyes instead of seeing rage, the copy nin could clearly see the pain that radiating inside them. It was then he knew that the man that stood in front of him could very well be the only person that understood the pain, and finally make sense of it. I understand how much he meant to you, and I bet it felt like a death blow when you saw how much the brat resembled the man you once saw as a second father. But just like me, Naruto somehow managed to worm his way into our cold broken hearts and patch the holes up with warm fuzzy feelings, and then root himself there permanently. The sage said quietly. Kakashi eyed him in awe. Each and every word that left his mouth it was like he was finally hearing a long-awaited diagnosis. How do you know about this so much? He asked at last. The sage noticed that Kakashi was still being held against the wall and at last realized his grip. Because the very same thing happened to me. We spared one day and he threw in a lucky punch. I could see Minato. I saw the same man living inside him. I thought my heart was going to give up. Poor brat thought I was having a heart attack. What happened? Did you two argue? Kakashi could only imagine the heated argument between the two. The sage scoffed but didn't look angry at the question, instead he looked down ashamed. I wish we did fight, it would have saved me a lot of money. Unfortunately I did something far worse, I completely ignored him. I can't even imagine how confused the poor kid felt. He didn't understand why I avoided him like the plague for a solid week. I drank, went to seek woman, anything to numb the pain. I even refused to train with him. But then one day he flew at me in a rage, demanding me to tell him what he'd done wrong. Thanks to that brat's temper tantrum, I remembered that while Naruto may look like Minato and has the same drive, warmth and kindness that he once held, at the same time Naruto is also the exact opposite. His headstrong, impatient, loud, disobedient, and above all the most frustrating stupid student I've ever trained. He took a moment to look at Kakashi and saw he wasn't getting the point. What I'm trying to say is that we both need to remember that if Minato could see the way we treated his son, I bet he'd be very disappointed in both of us. I'm sure Naruto doesn't care for me that much anyway. Kakashi said at last. In truth, it was just another attempt to dodge the subject. Jiraiya couldn't believe how stupid Kakashi sounded at that moment. And put him straight. I'll have you know that poor brat went spear when you blacked out. You wouldn't let Ino examine you. So he took charge and sat right by your side trying to comfort you. Kakashi didn't know what to say. It felt touching to say the least that Naruto cared about him so much. So that voice I heard next to me was Naruto. I bet he was also the one rubbing my hair. Seeing that this news seemed to have an effect, Jiraiya told Kakashi something else to further get the point across. Naruto's still worried about you. I just saw him in the hospital a few minutes ago. He's more concerned about your welfare right now. The brat didn't even bat an eyelid when we forbid him to never use his new jutsu again. Sakura looked ready to throttle him because he wouldn't sit still long enough for her to heal his arm. Kakashi smiled under his mask. That's just like him. Face it, you love him as if he was your own flesh and blood. What happened today just proves how much you two need each other. These feelings you've developed for him won't go away, Kakashi, no matter how much you want them to. If anything, this love you have for him will only continue to grow even stronger. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about this time. Jiraiya stated. In truth, getting closer to Naruto scared the Junin. More than anything, never forgiven himself for rejecting Naruto as a baby. But I had my chance and I threw it away. Your point, it's never too late for you to get involved and set things right. It wouldn't be such a horrible thing if you looked out for him more. Even though he's gotten stronger, he still needs you, and let's face it, you need him more than you realize. He smiled warmly before getting to the most important question. When did this all start anyway? No offense, but you two weren't all that close when he was under your care a few years ago. It seems a little strange for these feelings to appear for no reason. At first the sage's statement angered Kakashi a little. But as the words slowly sunk in, it dawned on him that they rang true. When Naruto was first put on his team, the copy nin didn't really get to spend that much time with the blonde. Most of the time he'd trained with Sasuke. It wasn't like Naruto and himself didn't spend time together. I guess it started a few weeks ago when Naruto got really depressed for some reason. He still seemed off during training. During that time it got me thinking about the past again. Now that he thought about it, Kakashi realized he'd never found out what troubled him that day or how he'd improved so quickly. Distracted doesn't sound too concerning, but being depressed, now that doesn't sound like the Naruto I know. Did you ask him what was bothering him? The Sannin asked. I did, but he told me it was nothing, but I just can't shake the feeling that I'm missing something important. The sage looked at the copy nin thoughtfully for a moment. Something about what the copy nin described didn't feel right. He got to know Naruto well during those 3 years, and that time he'd learned to trust his instincts. In the end, it was the churning feeling in his gut that helped him make up his mind. I think I should talk to him myself. He might have managed to fool you, but he wouldn't dare lie to me. It might be nothing to worry about. But I can't say I'm not curious. That's something you need to learn if you truly want to be a part of Naruto's life. Follow your gut. That's the most important tool every parent needs. That one word caused something to stir deep inside him. Me a parent? Seeing his words were leaving a lasting impression, Jiraiya decided to leave. I'll talk with him, Tomoru. Before he jumped out into the night, but before he did, the hermit needed to get one last thing to get off his chest. I thought you might like to know, not a day goes by that I don't regret my choice. With that said, he left and the room returned back to the comforting silence. The copy nin shut the window and settled back down under the covers, letting the night's events sink in. It seemed to take an age for him to drift off, and he finally fell into a light slumber. It seemed like he just nodded off when a knocking sound brought him round. This time the person knocking on the glass window was Yamato. Mental note: buy blinds and rig the glass with pepper spray. He thought lazily, feeling a touch moody at begging woken up again so early in the night. A quick glance at the clock on the other hand revealed it was in fact 9 o'clock in the morning. Reluctantly he got out of his warm bed and let Yamato inside. Yamato didn't stop to greet him and quickly explained why he was there. "Senpai, please tell me Naruto's with you," the wood user asked frantically. Kakashi looked back, startled by the question. No, why? It was out of character for Yamato, an experienced Anbu, to look frazzled and worried at the same time. Yamato looked disheartened at his response and explained the unfolding situation to his superior. Naruto escaped from the hospital last night. We thought he might have come looking for you because he kept asking if you were okay. That stupid brat, when I see him next I swear I'm going to kill him with my bare hands. Tsunade's throwing a fit back at office. Kakashi didn't hear the rest of Yamato's rant. He was more preoccupied by the sudden feeling of his heart rate increasing. At first he thought he was having another panic attack, but there was no pain or hallucination this time. He did feel a sudden need to get out the house and search for Naruto. We can't waste time standing around, we need to get out there and start looking. He cried. In a split second he got dressed and ready to leave. Yamato nearly fell out the window as the sliver nin flew past him in a bid to begin the search. Senpai, wait, you don't even know where we've searched yet, he called, racing after his former mentor.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.